Hello, you guys. Welcome to the podcast and welcome, Sarah Weiss. Sarah, I'm so excited to have you on today. Thanks so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so stoked. So, for those that don't know you yet, would you mind giving us a little introduction on yourself?
Yeah, so my name is Sarah Weiss, or On Brand by Sarah on the social media streets. And I am a business mentor and content strategist who specializes in TikTok. I've been on the platform since early 2021 and have been through all of its morphs and changes, and it's become like my bread and butter.
Mm.
So I like to say I make the platform not so scary.
Which is like what I'm so excited to talk about because it's
Yes.
such a intimidating platform, especially because it can get like there's so much potential. Like it really is like Instagram, there's so much potential, but it takes so much work. So, how did you like get into TikTok? What was like your first back in 2021, which hearing you say that, I was like, that was last year. No, it wasn't.
I know.
I'm like, nope, not at all. But how did you kind of like get into it? Did you approach it from like a business standpoint at first, or were you just kind of like on the platform?
So I downloaded TikTok to entertain myself in 2020 after I was like, oh my God, I'm never gonna get on TikTok. Back then it was called, wasn't it called like Musically or something?
Yeah, it was Musically before it was TikTok.
Yeah. So, but I downloaded it and I'm like, oh my gosh, I am actually so entertained by this. And then in 2021, when I started my business, I'm a very all or nothing girly. So here's what
Mhm.
happened. I thought that I could just promote my business using a Facebook business page and Canva graphics. And I very quickly realized that that was going to do diddly squat for me. So then I went to the polar opposite end of the spectrum and I'm like, I'm just going to talk on video on TikTok. And I approached it from a very fuck around and find out strategy, which is like one
My
of my
favorite.
main strategies that I still use. Um, we could talk more about that, but I approached it from like, there's literally nothing bad that's going to happen if I test things.
Mm.
And it quickly started becoming my most viewed platform. That's to this day where most people discover me. And the rest is history. And I've used it with so many different clients from different industries, and it really does work for everybody. And that's
Mm.
not just me being like, buy my services and get on TikTok. It truly works for everybody. And we can talk more about why.
Yeah. I want to talk about fuck around and find out because I'm
Yeah.
obsessed with that. That is like
Mm.
something that I talk to my clients about a lot is this idea of experimentation because truly like we get so caught up in the like rules and regulations of what people say to do online and how to show up in marketing and that there's like one specific strategy that's going to work for everyone when in reality there's so much room for experimentation and like there's such a large window of what works. So what was your window of fuck around and find out? Like, were you trying different tactics? Were you showing up all the time? Like, did you have a strategy? What did that all look like?
Yeah. So when I got on TikTok for my business in 2021, the types of videos that were popping off and really getting people a lot of views and followers and conversions were the trending audio videos
Mm.
where you were either lip syncing or it was a B-roll video. And for people that don't know what B-roll is, it's just like those short 7 to 10 second clips where you're like sipping coffee, putting on your makeup, playing with your dog. Then even a few months into me being on TikTok, those videos started tanking for business owners. And the videos that absolutely pop off now for entrepreneurs are talking videos,
Mm.
face to camera, voiceovers. And we know exactly why. It's because when you talk and you open your mouth and you let people see your personality, it helps you stand out from the sea of sameness.
Mhm.
Now, if I were to let my ego get in the way and say, well, when I first got onto TikTok just a few months ago, the trending audios were working. So obviously I'm shadow banned. Obviously I'm being suppressed because it was just working.
Mm.
Whereas I let myself get curious. I made it mean nothing about me. And I'm like, okay, maybe this platform shifts like no tomorrow very quickly. Let me try something else and see if that hits with my audience.
Is that like a trait that comes naturally to you to like power through almost the discouragement of social media? Because I find that that's like that truly is what stops people in their tracks. I know it's stopped me in my tracks before where you're just like, this isn't working and I'm over it. Like I'm putting in so much work and it's not showing up in the way I want it to. Like I'm just gonna call it. Like how is that something that comes naturally to you, or was that like a work in progress?
Oh my God, it's a constant work in progress. I'm not going to even sit here now and be like, oh my, I never let my ego win. I'm totally healed from that. Like,
Hmm.
no. And I think anybody that says that is a crock of bullshit because there are certainly circumstances as entrepreneurs where we're like, whether it's the way that we're launching, the way that we're showing up on social media, the way that we're showing up on, like, it might have worked for us before and it's not working for us now. And it can be a striking situation to be
Hmm.
like, wow, I have to change something that worked really well for me in the past. What does that mean about me as a person? Am I doing something wrong or bad? Am I stupid? Have I lost it? Who am I to
Hmm.
do this?
Hmm.
And I recently had that realization when it came to Instagram because I became so comfortable on TikTok and I navigate so well through the changes on TikTok that when I looked at my Instagram, I'm like, I feel like I've given up. Like I stopped myself from growing. And I'm like, you know what? Unfortunately, because of the industry that I'm in, and I don't know if you find this too, but like if you're helping businesses grow and you yourself are not growing, people people do look at your followers, even though it's not everything.
Hmm.
Absolutely not. But I would be lying if I said it's not something that people look at.
Yeah, no, it's
And so I'm like,
important.
you know what? We're gonna figure this out. And so on Instagram, I was like, I am going to FAFO. I'm gonna fuck around and find out. And it came much harder
Hmm.
than how I FAFO on TikTok. But I did. I got uncomfortable. I leaned into something new. And in the past 6 months, I've grown on Instagram from about 3,000 followers to almost 16,000 followers. Again,
Wow.
followers are not everything. I'm just want to give y'all a concrete
Hmm.
example of what it looks like. Um, but it's only because I didn't let my ego win. And
Mm.
I let myself get uncomfortable with trying out different strategies that maybe didn't work for me in the past, but are working now, and vice versa.
Mm. What are like some of the strategies that you're seeing work now? Like obviously you've touched on it, but social media changes so rapidly. It feels like as soon as you have a hold on it, it's like, what if we change something? Like what if we updated the algorithm actually? And
Yeah.
you're like, oh, thank you so much.
What if
I
we
actually,
completely shifted the algorithm
yeah.
every day? Yeah.
What if we changed it literally every
Um,
second? What are you, yeah, like how are you showing up right now? Like what is that kind of looking like for you?
yeah. So my whole MO is I say that I use TikTok and Instagram like an old married couple.
Mm.
They actually work so well together, and not many people see that or feel that, and they're like, "Oh my God, do I have to create brand new content for each platform? I can't do that. I don't have the bandwidth for that." But it's actually super simple. And even though the majority of my audience on TikTok like makes up the biggest portion of my audience,
Mm.
like I don't know. Last time I looked, it was like almost 43,000 followers on TikTok, but I close most of my sales on Instagram,
Okay.
which is really important for entrepreneurs to listen to because if you're a service provider of any kind, a lot of the times people might need a closer touch point, at least a DM conversation before they invest. And Instagram is the place to do that. But here's how I use it. TikTok is my awareness platform, so that is where I post more of like the how-to content,
Hmm.
educational content, content that people would type into a search bar. And I
Mm,
don't look at it as, oh, I'm going to be attracting beginners. I'm going to be attracting DIYers. No, I I have had people at all different stages of business find me through those videos,
mhm,
and I call it open the door content.
mm,
What content is going to open the door to from me to you? If that's an educational type video, let's do it. On Instagram, that is where most people come for nurturing. It
mm.
is possible for it to act as an awareness platform, but the algorithm is most of the time set up to push your content out to existing people. If you have a an exceptional piece of content, it will get pushed out to non-followers. And so an example of how I use them together is maybe I'll post a talking video on TikTok about getting found through search. Then I'll post a B-roll on Instagram with text on screen that says, want to get found through search in your videos?
Mm.
Comment grow, and I'll meet you in your inbox. Then I'll take that same idea, want to get found through search in your videos, post a poll on my stories, give a little bit of tea, and then either lead people to a link or a keyword to take a next step. So I'm always beginning on TikTok and then I stretch that content to Instagram feed and Instagram stories.
Okay, so you're like not even necessarily making new content. You're almost just like putting it in a different form for Instagram.
Exactly. You're just presenting it in a different way that's native to the platform. You can even go a little bit further and like take that same idea about getting found through search and bringing it into your email, making the hook of your video, the subject line, the talking points, the body, the button, the call to action. You can even stretch it even further and make a podcast episode about it. So I'm always originating on TikTok, but I'm stretching it in different ways to present it on my other platforms.
Have you found that certain types of content do better on the platform? So like I know you said, for example, like you're talking to the screen for TikTok and then you're doing B-roll with text over it for Instagram. Is that like a pretty blueprint concept for you? Like do those pieces of content usually perform better on those platforms?
Most of the time, yes. And that was like a personal vendetta that I needed to get over with Instagram because I had in my head, I was like, oh, I'm so creatively unfulfilled by posting these 7-second B-rolls. And then I shifted that mindset to, oh, how lucky am I that I only need to post a 7-second B-roll to get people aware of my brand, my business, and my offers. I will say on Instagram, I do rotate talking heads and trending audios. On TikTok, I I have not posted a trending audio in probably a year and a half.
Really? That's super interesting. That's a really, I'm like hot take, honestly.
Yeah, yeah. For business owners, like service providers, let me give an example. Like for social media managers, nutritionists, fitness people, financial people, like your talking videos will always hit better than a trending audio on
Mm.
TikTok.
Okay. So how often, I'm sure it's different now that you've like built your platform, you're focusing on growing it more than like getting it off the ground and running on TikTok, especially. But obviously, there's so much talk around the quantity of content that needs to be produced on TikTok versus other
Mhm.
social media platforms. What are you seeing? I mean, it's again, it changes all the time, but like, what are you seeing works right now? If someone's like starting their TikTok today, what do they need to be aiming for? Like, what does that workflow start to look like if you're trying to get it up and off the ground?
Yeah, so my prior recommendation was to post twice a day, Monday to Friday.
Okay.
But I actually don't recommend that anymore because I find that for most people, it'll burn them out faster than it will help them.
Mm,
And then you're just going to be resentful and you're going to post 0 times Monday, Friday. And so I'll give the example of my client that's a nutritionist. Like she started from zero And it's been about 3.5 months, and she is now at 6,500 followers, which is incredible
Amazing.
from starting from zero. And she posted once a day, Monday to Friday, talking videos that were 90 seconds or less.
Okay, amazing. That's
Yes.
so
And
doable.
so, so doable, so doable. And if you're listening to this and you're like, oh, but like, what do I have to like bring the videos into CapCut and do the fancy editing and do the fancy closed captions? No. Those fancy Alex Hermosi type pop-up flashy closed captions with the flying GIFs, those actually stand out like a sore thumb on TikTok, and they hurt you more than help you. Like there are, and I won't say any names because like we're not gonna we're not gonna go down that rabbit hole, but there are some really successful educate social media educators on Instagram, and I see them on TikTok, and they are having such a hard time growing because they will not stray from those fancy curated pop-up closed caption gifs flying in the air videos.
Yeah.
But that
It
doesn't hit on TikTok. It
no, it's
doesn't
like the
hit.
least effort you put into the video, the better it does. Like, I haven't really worked on growing my business TikTok, but I built like a personal platform on there over the last couple years. And it was, I really made
Hmm.
it an outlet of just like, where can I content create and where can I have fun in a way that like doesn't feel related to work right now? And I was so shocked. Like, I was like, this is just a social experiment. And it was so shocking to see how like the TikTok ideas that I would have on the fly or the TikTok ideas that I would do at a moment's notice with like very little editing and very little prep, like those are the ones that built my platform. The ones that I spent time conceptualizing and filming and like putting all this effort into and matching with audios. Like sometimes they would do well, but like honestly, most of the time, no. Like it really was like people love a genuine, easy approach to social media.
Yeah, and I know that this phrase is probably really like buzzwordy at this point, but for people that don't know, I'm still going to give the example, is the videos that hit well on TikTok are very FaceTimey. It's like
Mm-hmm.
you prop your phone up on the windowsill, you're spilling tea to a friend, you cut out your silent pauses, and you're ready to go. Like that's the kind of content that hits on TikTok. And I totally acknowledge that that could be a little uncomfortable and a little different than what we've been quote unquote taught to do on Instagram. But that's what I mean when I say like the cultures of the platform are so different.
Oh, absolutely. The cultures of the like Instagram has become this like beautiful curation, like portfolio piece. And TikTok to me is like, this is where we hang out with our friends. Like, this is where we get to know each
Hmm.
other.
Yeah, 100%. And I think another comparison that often makes it a little bit more digestible to people that came from Instagram is TikTok is more closely related to how you show up on your Instagram stories. It's
That's a
very
great
much that
comparison.
like, yeah, like that behind the scenes. I want to like tell you something real quick. You're like coming with me in my kitchen.
Hmm.
I'm gonna spill the tea and be done. So yeah, it's much different often from the IG feed.
And I think that's so exciting. Like I love that. Like we people are so burnt out with Instagram and like we have been complaining about it since 2015 or whenever the algorithm like really kicked in 2016. So I think it's like so exciting if you just change your perspective. Like it's so exciting to have a platform where you can like kind of just goof off, honestly. Like you can just experiment.
Yeah, totally. I think it's so refreshing, and like I always love to hear like I have a client right now. She's in the photography space, and she was absolutely getting hives about even the thought of showing up on TikTok. And like this past week, she messaged me and she was like, it's why is it so much easier to show up on TikTok than it is on Instagram? And it's just because that expectation of curation and the perfect caption, the perfect text on screen pop-ups, the perfect many chat automation is out the window. It
Yeah.
doesn't exist there. And I feel the same way. And I rarely ever use the word easy in my marketing because what's easy for me might not be easy for you. So I'm going to use the word simple. It is much more simple to show up on TikTok because the bells and whistles and strategies and shoulds from Instagram just don't exist on there.
No, exactly. I love that. How would you suggest like coming up with content ideas and like what you're supposed to talk about and how you're supposed to show up? Because I think that's something that again it is such an intimidating platform. It gives people so much anxiety. Like I Instagram is like super stressful to people, but everyone's come to terms with the fact that they like should use it. It's been around for so long.
Yeah.
But TikTok, people still are like, I don't know, like I think I can get away with not using it. Like, how do you start kind of laying that foundation of like, okay, let me prep of what I can talk about? Or do you kind of like approach it on the fly? Like, what is your strategy there? Or what do you suggest to your clients when they're wanting to start diving in and they're not sure what to talk about?
Yeah, so for me, my strategy and what I always recommend to my clients is 50% of my content is batched and 50% is done on the fly.
Mm.
That's because nobody, and I don't care what anybody says, nobody can be on 100% of the time every single day of the week. That sounds fucking exhausting. And so you need to set your future self up for success if you want to consistently show up on these platforms. So 50% of it is batched. And all I mean by batch is I don't use any fancy systems here, guys. I have a running list in my phone, in my notes app, and I set about an hour a week. I set that aside to sitting down and just pressing record.
Mm.
All of the editing, the caption writing, chopping out my silent pauses, that can be done laying on my couch. I don't need to be on for that.
Hmm.
What most people's highest energy task is going to be is recording. The other 50% I'll do on the fly.
Hmm.
Maybe I got off of a client call and I'm like, ooh, I really need to talk about that with my audience. Maybe somebody asked me a question in the DMs and I told them it would be really great for content because a million other people probably have that question.
Hmm.
But back to how do I decide what to post on TikTok? It's not a perfect science, but the main thing that I will usually think of is what is my ideal person typing into the search bar?
Mm.
What are they searching for? What do they need support with? What are they unsure about? Another tool that I use, TikTok actually like almost spoon feeds us what to post. It's a feature called the Creator Search Insights. All you have to do is
Mm.
go onto TikTok and type in Creator Search Insights, and it will bring you to a page that tells you what your audience is searching for. So you don't necessarily have to guess. And if I am in a rut or I want to play the game of TikTok, I will just go down that list and look at what people are searching for.
And does everyone
Um,
have access to that?
Everyone has access to it.
Okay, cool. That's
Yeah.
the nicest thing I've ever heard. I'm like, that's so easy.
Yeah. Yeah. When you're in, not to make it confusing, but like when you're in the creator search insights, you can click on something called content gap. And
Mm.
what that is it's a category of what people are searching for that TikTok has deemed that there's not enough content about it yet. And I'm not gonna lie, like when I make content from the content gap, it always pops off. Um,
Amazing. What a
because
like
TikTok
little
is
hack.
literally telling us, yes, yes. TikTok is literally telling us like, hey, there's not enough about this. Create some shit about it and we'll help you.
Mm.
So I use that. I will say, unfortunately, like I've tried to post like case study type content on there yet. Uh, Content on there, not yet. Content on there. It doesn't really pop off. And the reason it doesn't pop off is because the algorithm is set up to push you out to new people. And if you're giving a case study about them, they don't even know who you are yet.
Yeah, they don't care.
So what are they even listening to a case study about? So I save that for Instagram. Um, but yeah, those are like my main kind of buckets for choosing what to post.
That's amazing. Do you ever like what's your schedule like now? Do you still do two videos Monday through Friday, or how do you kind of approach it now that you've grown your platform? It's a little steadier.
No, no, I don't. I don't even, if I'm being honest, like right now, I don't even do one video a day, Monday to Friday. It's literally my videos that I've posted like a month, 2 months, a year ago, right now that are getting traction and
Oh,
like
amazing.
getting me new followers, which is another reason that I always recommend business owners go on TikTok because if we think about Instagram, most of the time you're going to get all of the traction to that video within the first like 48 hours. And then it kind of lives and dies unless somebody intentionally goes to your profile to binge more. TikToks, they work for you years after you post it. Years after you post it because again, it's a search engine. But also, like an example, if you go onto my TikTok, I just posted a video about how to use TikTok and Instagram together. I
Mm.
posted that like 2 or 3 weeks ago, and it's just now picking up traction. So don't delete your videos on there because you never know when they're gonna start working for you.
No, the timeline for TikTok is so crazy. I think it's one of the most fascinating things about the platform because you're right. It sometimes takes weeks for it to get traction. And then, yeah, I have videos that are 2.5 years old now that like
Hmm.
blow up all day, every day. That's where I get all of my followers from still. Like I haven't made new
Yeah.
TikTok content really in months, and I still have followers like pouring in from those videos that are years old, literally years
Yeah.
old. It's crazy. And that would never happen on Instagram.
No, Instagram could never.
No. I'm like, that's a literal pipe dream. Like it could
Yeah.
never do that. Oh my gosh. Well,
Yes.
this has all been like, oh, actually, I have one last question before my actual last question, which is the TikTok ban that we have been talking about
Mm.
for 10,000 years. Do you actually think there's anything to be concerned about there? Or how do you kind of approach that?
Yeah. And you guys, this is subjective, but I don't think it's going anywhere.
Hmm.
I truly don't. And I've been saying if it does go somewhere, there's going to be something identical that like immediately takes its place. But truly, 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 I don't think it's going anywhere.
Yeah. I'm like, we're years question mark. I'm like, we're years into them saying that. So I always want to
Yeah.
ask TikTok experts because I'm like, what is your stance as someone that knows the app through and through? But to me, I'm always like, seems fine. It seems not that
Yeah, I
concerning.
really think it's fine. I do. I would tell you if I thought otherwise, but I really don't think it's going anywhere.
Amazing. Well, to kind of like wrap up, what would you like if you could give like one piece of advice as people even just consider diving into TikTok, whether that's like a practical advice or even just like mindset to go into it with, what would that piece of advice be?
Yeah. Well, my main piece of advice is fuck around and find out. You're not going to know your strategy for TikTok unless you fuck around and find out because again, like we talked about, it's so different from any other platform. There's no way you're going to post your first video and know exactly what hits with your audience. And my second piece of advice, which is more strategic, is set your profile up to come up in search.
Mm,
So I want you to add keywords to your name section. So if you're a nutritionist, I want it to say like Sarah pediatric dietitian or Sarah family friendly meals. I want
mhm,
you to edit your bio section with more juicy keywords. And I want you to have your bio tell your audience what you can do for them. So I
mm.
don't want it to say like dog mom and chocolate lover. Even if you are a dog mom and chocolate lover, like I
Aren't we
want it to
all?
be super straightforward
Mhm.
about what you can do for your audience. Just so we're setting you up to get found in search. But ultimately, like it's a big game of testing. And if you feel like you're swimming in the sea of the same people on Instagram, the best next move that you can make as an entrepreneur is getting your Batootie on TikTok.
Amazing. Well, this is what I needed to hear. I'm like, I personally needed this episode. Uh,
I'm so glad.
I always avoid it. I'm like, I don't, it's the content commitment. And like, I just need to like do the mindset shift of like, how lucky am I to make 2 videos a day? That pays my bills.
Hmm.
That's crazy. That's literally crazy. It's such a crazy like we have so much at our fingertips to grow our businesses and our lives. So thank you so much for
Yeah,
coming on and talking to us about TikTok. This was amazing.
I'm so glad. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So obviously we will link everything in the show notes, but can you tell everyone really quickly where they can find you online?
Yeah, you can find me at On Brand by Sarah on TikTok and Instagram and my podcast, The Cozy Content Corner.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Sarah. It was so lovely to meet you. Thank you for coming on, and thank you guys for listening.